Welcome back to our weekly update on COVID-19, where I'm going to share with you always the true statistics of exactly what is going on around the world globally rather than what you hear on your local and national media-based station. So what I want to share with you right out of the gates is that today, April 14th, we are at the peak in the United States. Now, when I say that, I always want to say it with a little bit of a caveat that it is a peak for overall cases within the United States, but actually from local community to state, it could actually change. Some people might be hit a little bit harder in a week or two from now, and many other communities, it was 1 or 2 weeks previous. So what I can share with you is this, is that really important that as we look at the statistics, that we know now that as of today, we will see the greatest amount of cases happening inside of the United States for COVID-19. And this, again, we're looking at this globally as well because we can see all of the data and all the statistics from Johns Hopkins University. But I want to share with you specifically what's happening so that you're just not as, I would say, fearful or in a state of panic, which the media would love you to be. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So as of today, we are going to pass about 2 million COVID-19 cases. We are at the time of this recording, 1,949,000, where the United States, of course, as I said before, and hopefully you did see my last video, Instagram actually blocked my ability to put up Instagram TV videos. We're able to get in touch with them. I'm hopefully going to be able to publish this video on Instagram. The caveat for that, though, is that I'm not actually allowed to promote it. So they will not allow me to promote anything COVID-19 related. So think about that, what you will. But regardless, if I can get it up there, that would be great. So right now in the entire world, the United States has about 584,000 cases, Spain 172,000, Italy 162, France 137. So what we can see is that the United States, obviously, it's a larger country, but what we're looking at is, 3x the amount of cases of anybody else. And one of the issues we're having right now in the United States is this really fearful and panic-based media-associated press. And that's because what they're doing is they're taking what's happening in New York and they're extrapolating that across the United States and causing everyone to feel this fear and panic when that's simply not the case. If we're looking at the exact true statistics, right? Not twisted or anything like that. Here's what we're looking at in terms of total deaths. Italy had 21,000. Spain had 18,000. France had 14,967. The UK had 12,000. New York alone had 7,349. So we have to understand that New York is the fifth leading epicenter of COVID-19 cases, certainly in the United States, but also in terms of mortality. And this, of course, and I like to say this, that I want you to understand, this is serious. This is a big deal. But what happened in New York was an aberration compared to the other 49 states in the United States. I mean, New York, and that's just New York City, by the way. That's New York City had 7,349. Because if we keep going down the list, New York shows up 3 or 4 more times. In Nassau, New York, 910 deaths. Unassociated cities inside of New York, 776 deaths. Suffolk, New York, 568. Westchester, New York, 557. And again, there are almost no other states or countries listed in that top 20. So New York is there over and over. What we saw was a great spread of the coronavirus, the COVID-19 strain inside of New York City. And so when we're talking about hospital beds not enough being allocated, ventilators, that was absolutely the case. And some other places, don't get me wrong, did get hit hard. Illinois, parts of New Jersey, Michigan, certainly there were issues as well. But when I speak with doctors around the United States, I know many of the nurses and many, not necessarily doctors, but many of the nurses and many of the hospital-based workers have actually been furloughed and they have been laid off, believe it or not, because essentially what we want people to do is stay home so the spread becomes slower so that hospitals are able to catch up. But what they did then was they said non-essential surgeries or not essential cases should be temporarily rescheduled. And so that's what we did. And I think that was probably the right decision for sure. But now what I want to share with you is this, is that, again, this is a particular virus that greatly affects those people 65 plus and predominantly 75 plus. That means about 50%, not quite, but about 50% of all mortality comes from people over the age of about 75 years old. And that is because of a compromised immune system. So anybody with a compromised immune system, doesn't matter if you're 20 years old, 50 years old, 80 years old, you are at higher risk. And if you're at higher risk, you should absolutely make sure that you are self-distancing, that you are quarantining, that you're having someone, ideally, if you can, drop off your food, that you're not going outside. Now, what the media doesn't tell you that now again, there are for sure cases anywhere, any age of people that could be affected. But what they're not sharing with you is that a lot of people that died from COVID-19 in their 20s, 30s, or 40s had pre-existing health-based issues, such as cancer, going through cancer treatments, etc. And the only reason I mention that is because I don't want people to live in fear. I don't want people to live in panic. What I want people to do is really make smart, educated decisions based on the true facts. So what I'm sharing with you now is that the United States is thinking, and for the most part, it seems to be the general thought process, that they're going to keep businesses closed potentially through all of May and keep people indoors through all of May. And the reason they're saying this is that again, the curve has never changed. So that's one thing I want to share with you. I feel pretty confident about this because I've been checking this now for 3 weeks, the actual curve based on beds needed, meaning capacity, ventilators needed, since, for the past 3 weeks or so. And it's never changed between April 14th and April 15th. And I just want to share with you this. I'm going to move my phone aside for a second. Once we get to May 1st, we're looking at exactly, let's see, so we need, projected is about 58,000 beds needed right now. Today's April 14th. When we get to May 1st, we'll need about 36,000 beds. That's over the entire United States. So now we're looking at, what's that, about 2/3 or so, not even. And then when we get to June 1st, 2,000 beds, that 2,996 beds, that's about it. So, and again, and I'm not saying that's that's not significant. It's significant, but not significant compared to the number of beds needed for heart disease or stroke or anything else. So for sure that this is very, very important to look at that. And that is projected based on keeping people quarantined essentially through all of May. So I do want you to know that's projections based on keeping people inside. We are looking for the actual mortality number to drop after today. And it will greatly drop after it really begins to decline after April 25th. So we're looking at about another 10 days or so, 11 days. And then we see a sharp decline again at May 11th. So we keep seeing it drop from about 2,100 people per day. And then it will drop within 10 days to 1,300 people a day over the entire United States. Then it will drop to 1,114. And again, I never like to downplay any deaths or anything like that. And the reason is that it's someone's mom, it's someone's grandmother, grandfather, it's someone's sister, it's someone's brother, it's someone's parent, like whatever it might be. So I understand that. But what I don't want to do is make that bigger than the fact that we have a lot of issues within the United States, and we have a lot of issues in terms of the biggest causes of mortality. And all of them have to do essentially with metabolic syndrome and heart disease and stroke and diabetes and hunger and like all sorts of different things. So what I want to say is that there's a level that I'm willing to go with really telling people to social distance and quarantine inside. And if the United States really believes that we need to stay in for all of May, well, maybe then that's what we have to do. But what I'm looking at it is that's what the charts show. And there is a huge, there's just a complete leveling off after June 5th. So that means that there'll be no increase. It'll just basically stay flat. And if all of this holds true, which again, the data has been very good because we're looking at US-based data based on what happened globally. We're looking at about 68,841 total deaths by August 4th from COVID-19. And of course, that's quite a few people, and every number represents a person. What we want to understand though, is that, and I'll qualify this, is that this year's flu was somewhere around 45,000 people. 2 years ago would have been about 70,000 or so in the year before that, more like 85 to 90,000. So we're looking at a mid-range, like 2 years ago, the number of people that died from the actual flu. Now, the difference is this. Would this number have been 4 to 5 times greater had we not kept people social distancing and quarantine? It very well may be. So there is something to that. It very well could have been, let's say 250,000 deaths. It could have been. And that would have been then, let's say 4 or 5x what it would be for a normal flu season. The other thing that happened is that this happened over about 50% the period of a typical flu-based season. So it did happen faster. And the difference with COVID-19 is that it really produces that severe acute respiratory syndrome issues, meaning like the receptors of the lungs really get targeted to a greater degree. And so that's what I want to follow up with, is that there are clinical trials for the hydroxychloroquine going on right now with the azithromycin. Hopefully you tuned into my last Friday podcast where I went a little bit more in depth because the study is a bit convoluted. Unfortunately, and I wish that it wasn't. You don't use vitamin C as a placebo when you're trying to help see if people get well or not, because we know vitamin C works. There's more and more data now coming about a new drug called, it's not really a new drug, actually. I was looking it up on PubMed. It's called APN-01, and it is a recombinant human angiotensin converting enzyme. It helps to block, or enzyme 2, it helps to block the ACE2 receptors that pick up or allow for the COVID-19 virus to really attach to cells inside of the lung-based tissue. So we have that. We have our plasma therapy that we spoke about. We have Avigan that they're using a bit more overseas. There's remdesivir, which some people are still using. So I think that that the actual trials the data won't be out for about 8 weeks because that's what the trials are going for, some not until September. But we know that at least doctors are seeing good results with that in hospitals. So good, we have something if people do get COVID-19 in the hospital. And again, I can't begin to stress to you enough, people are saying that, there's no boosting the immune system. There is. We know we're looking at all the studies now on melatonin, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Please keep in mind, none of that has changed from the very beginning. Like from the very beginning, before this started, I told you, these are the things that you need to be doing to boost your immune system. And they are all being shown within clinical trials and studies to be true. And that's because they help balance cytokines. They help balance the immune system. So do keep continuing to take your daily activated multivitamin or your daily foundational protocols. Take your vitamin C, take your zinc, take your omega-3s are great to do as well. People have been asking about that. But vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and, if you'd like to, you can certainly add the melatonin. You don't have to do high dosage of any of these. All the dosages, all my recommendations are at stephencabral.com/virus. All my previous videos, even the one that Instagram would not allow last week, are all at stephencabral.com/virus. I'm open to questions. I'm happy to help. That's the weekly update. It does look like we're at the peak right now today. So that is, in my opinion, it's good news only because we are starting to recover. We can see this light at the end of the tunnel, and we can know that we also have hope for the future. If there is a resurgence of this virus next winter, well, we've got the natural-based protocols. We've got now pharmaceutical-based protocols. Hopefully hospitals would be better equipped. And I think that hopefully they'll be less fair as well. Now I would love to just see people start to get back to more of a normal way of life. Because social isolation, human beings are not meant to be isolated. And bad things happen in terms of anxiety and depression and fear and panic. So I want to make sure that we're doing things smartly. I want to make sure that we are social distancing and that we are staying inside, most likely until May 4th, potentially all of May, and that at a state level, they'll let us know when we should start to roll things back out. Again, I'm not one to say don't go necessarily along with the recommendations, especially this first time around, but let's be smart, let's be safe. I'm happy to take your questions. Appreciate you tuning in, and of course, feel free to share this with anyone that you think it could help. Take care.